What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. For those that are new here, my name is Eric, and behind me is my 2017 BMW M4 competition. We've been daily driving this car since I just sold my M340i in the last video. If you guys didn't see that, go check it out and see why I sold my M340i. But today we're going to check out a new car. I'm super excited about this. This potentially could be my best car deal to date. I've bought and flipped a lot of cars throughout my time, and I think this could be potentially the best deal of all time. So we're gonna be going to check out what could be the cheapest V10 M5 in the entire country. So I'm going to hurry and go grab some cash, go grab a flashlight, my scan tool, and we're gonna head over there and go take a look at this super cheap V10 M5. Let's go ahead and head out so we don't miss this deal. So we stopped at the bank to grab some cash and then hit the freeway. We're heading about 35 minutes south of my house to take a look at this super cheap V10 M5. This car does have a clean title, and I pulled the Carfax. It's a 2-owner car and it does have a complete history. So I think this is gonna be a really good deal, but we just gotta go make sure it's real, that it does run and drive. And I wanted to check it out before I put the camera in the face of the owner. So you guys are gonna see me right here, starting the car and doing our first test drive. Just ask her what her bottom price is, you know, with the damage and stuff. Just tell her it's like you can't see it in the pictures. So unless she sent more pictures to that guy, I don't know if I'm gonna pay 8. I think I could pay a little bit less than that and I'd be okay with it. But yeah, it just has a little bit of damage, a little bit more than it seems. If you count this is 6,800, and then title. Okay, sweet. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, guys, it is official. I just purchased what is potentially the world's cheapest running driving E60 M5 with the legendary V10 engine. I paid $6,800. You guys saw I did a handshake deal, got the title, paid the cash, and I am driving home this E60 M5 V10. So it does have a few issues, which we'll go over on our route home to let you guys know exactly what I got and what issues this thing is gonna have. These are notorious engines for having tons and tons of reliability issues. So I think the challenge is gonna be, can we keep this thing on the road? And how many miles can we put on this engine before it blows up? Are you serious? Apparently this thing will not start. I don't know if it's brake pressure thing. Oh, I think it needs to be a neutral. Okay, there we go. All right, guys, first place we gotta head is directly to the gas station. This thing is super low on fuel and it is not running good. So I really hope we make it back to the shop. I drove it around the neighborhood and it seemed okay. It does run and drive. It definitely has some power steering issues and it seems like it needs some gas bad. Wow. Definitely needs an alignment. Definitely needs something in the power steering system. But this engine actually feels pretty dang good. Wow. I am so shocked right now, guys. I cannot believe I just got this car for that cheap. That is actually insane. All right, guys, we are on the freeway, and honestly, the more I'm driving this thing, the more confident I'm getting in this car. It definitely needs some work. It needs some help in the front end. The steering rack or something is a little bit messed up, so the alignment's a little off, and the transmission definitely seems like it needs some help. It shifts pretty slow. I don't know if that's just how these SMG Transes are. I've heard people don't like them. But yeah, it seems like there's just like a little lag in between gears. And from what I've read before I bought this car, which is basically just last night when I found the Facebook Marketplace listing, there's an electronic motor inside of the transmission that supplies hydraulic pressure to the solenoid. So when that starts to wear out or go bad, you can have issues in the trans. I think we might have something like that, but every gear works. It still shifts. It just is a little laggy, and yeah, I mean, no check engine lights, nothing really major to report. Everything seems great, and we're cruising along here at 80, 85. No issues, no temperature issues. The suspension actually seems pretty good. The dampening seems like it is making a difference when you push the EDC button into the 3 different modes. So I'm happy. I can't believe we bought this car, and you know, I just can't wait to get it home and get it on the lift and start working on it. This thing is gonna sound absolutely amazing with a full straight pipe exhaust. I literally cannot wait to do that to this car. It is gonna be epic. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and just keep driving home. We got about another 20 miles back to the house, and if this thing makes it, then I think I just got the absolute deal of the century. So I will see you guys there. This thing has performed absolutely amazing for a $6,800 V10 M5. No issues, no overheating. The AC works. I didn't blow out a tire. Everything works. It sounds pretty good. I'm really super happy with this purchase. So we're about to pull into the shop, and one of my buddies, River, is here. I'm gonna go ahead and try and get his reaction. He doesn't really know what this car is. I'm sure he doesn't really know that it has a V10. So I'll try and see what he thinks, and I'll show this car to some of my other friends who do know what this car is and know that it has a V10. We'll kind of get some of their reactions. What do you think?
Super sweet.
You know what's under the hood of this? Check it out. This might be my best deal to date. M5. Come take a gander under here. This is the real sauce.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
V10, baby! Just wait until this bitch got a straight pipe. This thing is gonna sound insane once we put an exhaust on it. All right, guys, we have made it back in the V10 M5. I actually can't believe that we paid $6,800 for this car and it made it all the way here. No issues at all, and I am so stoked with this purchase. We're gonna go ahead and pull it into the shop, and we will start making a list of all of the things that this car is gonna need. We'll put it up on the lift and take a look underneath, see if there's any major leaks or any issues underneath this thing, and I will let you guys know how much this total build is gonna cost us once we get a good part list together. All right, guys, we just went and picked up the M4 that I had left up there where I bought the new M5 earlier today. I ran into some traffic, so it is getting pretty late and the sun's going down behind me. So we're gonna go put the M5 up on a lift. I wanna quickly check it out, and then I'm gonna take it with me tomorrow, go to work with it and go out. I'm gonna take the car tomorrow, show it to some of my coworkers and some of my friends and get their reaction of a V10 M5. So let's go ahead inside. We're gonna get the M5 jacked up and we'll take a look and see, did I get the best deal of the year or did I get scammed on this V10 M5? All right, guys, now that we have the M5 in the shop and I've got a second, I want to just do a walk around and point out any of the flaws that I can see on this car front to back, and then we'll get it up in the air and we'll see what issues we can find underneath the car. So let's start right here with this front left tire. We do have some paint chipping and a little bit of curbing right here. It's not bad. It's mostly just paint chipping and not actual curbing. Tire looks good. We do have some rock chips, it looks like, on this fender. Not too bad. And up here, you can actually See, this looks like the clear coat is peeling. Could be PPF. Can't tell if that's a PPF, that's the actual clear. So it looks like right here we have some peeling clear coat along this edge. This edge, the paint is actually cracking off this plastic bumper. And if you look right there, you can see just a little bit of red. That is actually an indication that this has been body work and fixed. So this probably does have some paint work done to this corner right here. That's why the clear coat is failing. Moving up here, you guys can see these headlights are absolutely wrecked. These are super faded. They actually look better on camera, which is surprising. They look terrible in person. So we'll definitely be swapping these out. These are the pre-LCI headlights. Not a huge fan of these. I used to have an E60 that was an LCI. It has the better looking headlights, and I definitely do want to find a used set of those headlights. Looking at the bumper right here, you guys can see there's this crack right here. It looks like this car either hit something or somebody backed into the front bumper. There's an imprint right here and some kind of spider web cracks going out from there. And the front of this thing is absolutely peppered in rock chips. You can see these black grills right here. At some point got painted and they have just chipped way bad back through to the silver. So we'll definitely have to be swapping out these. This badge looks okay. It just has a couple of little chips down here, and the front hood has quite a few little rock chips peppered throughout it. Over on this side, we have a little bit of scratching right here. Not terrible. And again, just more rock chips all the way around the front. Not too concerned about that for the age of this car. Moving on to this wheel right here. This one again also has some paint cracking. Whoever did the black paint and painted these wheels and the front grills and stuff didn't do a great job, because it is cracking. This one is curved a little bit right here, and this right here looks like all the paint has kind of been rubbed off or cracked away. So we'll definitely have to be doing something about these wheels. Taking a look at these front rotors, you can see they're pretty grooved, and they do have a decent sized lip on here. So these definitely have seen better days, but the brakes aren't squeaking and they do feel pretty good. So I don't think they're too warped, but they definitely are old, and this car does have a decent amount of miles, so that makes sense. The M5 badge on this side is cracked just slightly. Doesn't look too terrible, but we can definitely make that look a lot better. And this emblem right here is completely faded as well, as you guys can see. All right, guys, at the rear we have these tinted taillights, which I absolutely hate. They are painted, not wrapped. It's not a film, so I can't just peel it off. I am gonna either have to polish these out or get new taillights completely. But other than that, the rear end actually is the cleanest part of the car. The trunk looks good. The rear windshield, other than the factory tint, looks good. And the rear bumper is pretty good. There's a couple small scratches on this area right here, but nothing major in the rear. So pretty stoked about the rear. Rear end looks really good other than those taillights. We have a couple of small chips on the side and one scratch right here on this door. And lastly, this wheel also has some chipped paint all the way around and just a little bit of curb rash. So all four of these wheels have paint chipping, so they are all going to need to get refinished, but they look pretty straight and they have good tires on them. And the rest of the body's okay. For getting this car for how cheap I did, I'm not really too upset about the exterior imperfections, and it does look pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the inside, and I'll show you guys what's wrong with the interior. So moving on to the inside, there is a couple of issues. First one being this driver's side door sill. This M5 seal is absolutely wrecked, so I'm definitely gonna have to get a replacement for that. This driver's side mat is pulled off of these sticky things, so I'm probably gonna have to get some glue, re-stick that down. The seat is pretty worn, but not anything bad compared to what you would expect. The side bolsters, everything up and down, all of the electronics in the seat work. This does actually have cooled and heated seats. I'm not sure if the cooled or heated seats work yet. I wasn't able to test those, but all the other lumbar and everything like that works. Moving over to the steering wheel, this thing is pretty beat up. So taking a look right here, it has seen better days, and it is actually pretty sticky on this side specifically. I don't know why it's only on this side, but this side is actually really clean. No real issues, no stickiness, but this side, super sticky. So hopping in here, you guys can see we have this factory cup holder, and both of those actually work, go in and out without issue, which is huge. You guys know anything about these E-series generation cup holders, they absolutely suck. They get sticky, they stop working. So I'm glad that both of these work perfectly. There is a dent right here in this silver trim. Not really sure what that's from, but we're definitely gonna have to replace this piece right here. I'm not sure exactly what that's from, but that is one of the main issues in here. The other main issue is actually this dash. If we come up here, you guys can see this is all split. So this actually has the extended leather dash that comes all the way up and has a stitch over it, and it actually is cracking all the way along the entire dash. So we are gonna have to do something about that. Maybe we can swap this dash out with a non-extended leather version. I'm not quite sure, but that is definitely something we're gonna have to address. Otherwise, this interior is actually pretty clean. clean. I don't really see any major flaws, no big rips or tears or anything like that. So I think interior wise, we're pretty good. It definitely just needs a good clean and then it'll be good to go. One small other thing you guys might have noticed is it's missing the covering for the wiring harness for the mirror. So I'm not sure what happened to that, but I'm guessing at one point when this windshield got replaced previously, the tabs or something broke on that, so it just wouldn't stay up. So that's no longer with the car as well. Other than that though, this thing is pretty clean. Let's go ahead and pop the hood. One more look at this beautiful V10 engine before we put this thing up in the air. So going over what we can just see visually with all the covers and everything on is it actually looks relatively dry. If you guys look at these valve covers, normally you would see a ton of different leaks all the way along here, stuff like that. It looks relatively clean. It's definitely a little dirty, but no major signs of leaking from the valve covers, at least from what I can see. The coolant reservoir doesn't have any cracks or leaks or anything like that. I don't see any coolant splatter after driving this thing for nearly an hour today, so that's a really good sign as well. We can see right here this hood cable is actually starting to deteriorate pretty bad, so we are probably going to have to replace that hood cable. The only other major leak that I can see is actually this power steering reservoir. These are pretty notorious for leaking, and because this car seems like it's having some power steering issues, I'll probably just go ahead and replace that power steering reservoir when we flush the fluid out of the steering rack and see if that can bring some life back into this, and hopefully we don't have to do a power steering pump, which is down below on these engines. Not too bad, but it is something that I would rather not have to do. So we're gonna see if we can get away with just flushing the system and replacing that reservoir. But that's pretty much it so far. So let's go ahead and get this thing up on the jacks. We'll see if there's any major leaks underneath, maybe get some of the covers off and take a look at this V10 engine from underneath.
Inside my own world of make-believe, kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.
All right, guys, so we're underneath the car. As you can see, we do have a pretty good sized oil leak on this V10 engine, and I've been trying to figure out where it's coming from, and I was really worried actually that this was coming from the oil pan. After doing a little bit more investigation, everywhere above right here is completely dry, meaning it's coming from this bolt or below. So one of these areas is leaking. It seems like the oil on this outside over here by these bolts is fairly old and sticky, and the oil in the middle right here by the drain plug is the most fresh and wet. So I think that we may have just a small leak in this oil drain plug right here. So we're gonna grab an Allen wrench. We're gonna try and tighten this up. If we're not able to get a little bit of a turn on this and it is fully tight and it's still leaking out of this area, that could be a problem. So we will have to drain all the oil out of this, take the drain plug out, inspect the threads and the crush washer. Something could have been installed wrong, or it could have been improperly torqued. I'm not quite sure, but usually when you have a leak like this, that means somebody has come down here and tried to tighten this again and again. And if it's still leaking, sometimes these can be super tight because people are just trying to tighten it down as much as possible to stop it leaking. And there could actually be something wrong with this seal in here. So that is the engine. Back here at the transmission, it looks about like the same thing. Everything from this bottom level up, we don't have any leaks anywhere. And it does look like it's just from this drain plug right here at the bottom of the engine. That is the freshest fluid, and everything else is pretty old. So I'm thinking we might have an issue with this drain plug and this drain plug. If those are the only two leaks on this engine and transmission combo, that would be absolutely insane. So I'm gonna get down here, clean a bunch of this stuff off. We'll see if we can tell where it's actively leaking from and see if we can get both of these drain plugs tightened out.
Children sing aloud, it's music till the wick burns out.
Uh-oh, we just got a reduced engine power, and at the light I just pulled up to, it stalled out. I don't know why. It was like stuck in like third or fourth gear when we pulled up to the light, so I think that might be the problem, but I don't know. I'm on my way to work right now. I'm gonna go take the car in to go show some coworkers, but we definitely have some sort of issue, and I don't have my code scanner on me, so we might have to run over to an auto parts store. I'm gonna try and make it to the office real quick But yep, we got our first official issue with the M5 V10. All right, guys, it's not looking good. We just pulled up to the office and this thing just died in the parking lot again. I'm gonna try and start it up. I'll show you guys what it does. When we have the key in, try and start it up. It is running super rough. Engine light. It's kind of running now. It was just dying out before. So, not sure what that is, but we'll see. I think one of my buddies is gonna meet me for lunch, so maybe he can bring me a scanner and we can scan this thing. All right, you guys gotta check this out.
A V10?
A V10? That's
Yes,
crazy.
sir.
Holy shit.
Big old motor in this old car.
Wild.
Bro.
What do you guys think?
That's a fine, dude.
I can't believe I got this thing. All right, check this out.
No way. A V10?
Yeah.
Are you serious? What the?
I know.
What the? Are you kidding me? You're gonna kill yourself in this thing. This thing's crazy. A V10?
Yes, so this has a
No
V10 from
way.
factory. It's the same, it's derived from the early 2000s, late 90s BMW Formula One V10
No
motor.
way.
Yeah. So this is the same as like my white M3, but instead of a V8, it's the V10. But it's in like limp mode right now.
Oh, it's an M6.
No, close.
Oh, that's an M5.
Cracked 5 badge, so it looks like a 6.
Damn.
This is an M5. Do you know what's in these cars?
Isn't it a V10?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's sick.
Gotta check this thing out. V10 in it.
What liter is it?
I think it's like a 4-liter V10.
4 liters.
Or maybe a 5-liter. I can't remember.
Hell yeah.
V10, brother!
We're basically like in the same family now, me being a 5-cylinder.
Yeah, dude. No, it's running okay. Still am gonna get it towed just so we don't risk it. But let's go ahead and pull the codes and we'll see what is going on with this thing. All right, guys, I just read all the codes, got them cleared. It seems like a bunch of different Vanos codes. Said it is in both Bank 1 and Bank 2. I'm not really sure what it is. So while we wait for the tow truck, I'm gonna try and get this thing started up again after clearing the codes, see if it made any difference. And if it does start and run okay, then I guess we can just drive it up onto the tow truck, take it back to the shop, and we'll do some diag there. All right, well, it did not like that. It didn't run very good, and the codes just came right back. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them again. We'll see what stuck.
The year is 1991. Birds and people are living together in seemingly perfect harmony. Until one day, a young man catches fire. This is Phoenix.
You've been knocked down and got up again. In a corner, you're so
Not quite sure how good this e-brake is.
Oh, that's fine, as long as it's in park.
Okay, it doesn't have a park actually, so it's only this because it has the SMG in these doesn't have a park.
Okay,
So
that's fine. I'm gonna strap it down real quick.
okay, thank you.
like a phoenix. You burst in a fire burn. A thirst and desire. You transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes. Phoenix. You burst in a fire burn. A thirst and desire. You transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes.
All right, guys, the M5 is loaded on the tow truck. I gotta go back into the office for another hour, and then I'm gonna head over to the shop to meet up with the car, and we'll figure out what's going on with this thing. All right, guys, we just pulled up in the M4, and the M5 is sitting right here. It got dropped off by the tow truck. Let's go ahead and pull it inside the shop so we can start diagnosing what happened to the V10 M5.
You see the truth behind the veil, and you know that they're just looking for attention. Oh, you don't let the ruthlessness prevail. Oh, it's time now, light your fires for ascension. Like a phoenix, you burst in a fire burn. A thirst and desire, you transform.
What did you think?
This soon as you said it was a project car, this is the second I knew.
Yeah? What do you think about this thing?
And also that you didn't cover all the wheels, so I saw the corner.
You saw a corner of a wheel? I was wondering, so there were people that knew because they were enough of a BMW people to know that these wheels are only on the M5.
Yeah, as soon as I saw, literally you missed like this much of it.
I kind of left it because I was like, if you know enough like that, you should just be able to know. I'm not going to tease you that bad.
That's crazy though, that it runs and drives.
V10. It did run and drive until today, and it broke down, and I towed it here.
No. Damn.
Yep, but this is it.
Wow.
V10.
Congrats,
It's a
bro.
car, clean title. How much do you think I paid for this? 145,000 miles, clean title, 2 owner, runs and drives, 6,800 bucks.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
You posted that, and I replied, V10. Oh my God.
8 years ago.
8 years ago, and now I have one of these. That is actually so crazy. That's awesome.
You burst in a fire, burn my thirst and desire. You transform out of pit of flesh. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes. Phoenix, you burst in a fire, burn a thirst and desire. You transform out of pit of flesh. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes.
All right, guys, we've spent a little bit of time diagnosing the V10, and we currently have codes for all 4 Vanos solenoids. If you guys don't know, Vanos is the variable valve timing system for BMW. There's actually 4 solenoids in the top of the heads. There's 2 on each side, one for the intake and one for the exhaust cam, and those control the timing on top. Those can be replaced fairly easily, taking apart some of this front area, taking out the fan, and you can get to those without too much trouble. They're pretty expensive. They're about $250 a piece for those, but the problem is why do we have codes for all 4 Vanos solenoids at the same time? That actually could be a bunch of different things, and we're going to try and figure out today what's going on. A couple of different options that could be. The worst thing that it could be is the rod bearings failed. We spun a rod bearing, sent debris through the motor, and clogged up all 4 Vanos solenoids at once, or potentially the Vanos pump down in the bottom, which then would leave the Vanos solenoids without oil and the engine cannot run properly. So that's pretty much the worst case scenario, is if we spun a rod bearing in this thing, and if that's the case, we are pretty much going to need a new motor, or I'm going to have to spend even more money to rebuild this block from the ground up, and those kits to rebuild these motors are extremely expensive. They range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to rebuild these motors, so we're really hoping that didn't happen. We're going to be draining the oil today to see if we have any debris in there, anything that can tell us what happened to this motor. And then I actually ordered a borescope on Amazon so we can put that underneath the engine up through the oil pan and take a look inside the motor and see if there's any signs of detonation or any signs of rod bearing failure. So we're going to be checking out that today. Let's go ahead and get the oil drained, see if there's any metal chunks in it, and we're going to be taking out the oil filter, and I'll show you guys that on the bench. We can cut it open and inspect inside. We'll see if there's any signs of this motor being bad. All right, guys, we got the oil drained out of this thing, and it is absolutely black. The last reported oil change on the Carfax was about 15,000 miles ago, and looking at this oil, it honestly may have done that 15,000 miles without any oil change at all. So far, I haven't seen any big chunks of metal or anything come out of the bottom of the oil pan, which is good, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. I haven't pulled the oil filter, which would catch most of the shavings if we did spin a rod bearing. I have a clean magnet here, so I'm gonna go ahead and run it through the oil. We can see if we can pick anything up off the bottom, or if there's any metallic debris in here, we would start seeing it build up on the end of this magnet. Man, that oil is black and thick. Actually doesn't really look like any metal shavings at all, which is really surprising to me, but is a really great sign. So the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and remove the oil filter. It's not up in the engine bay like most BMWs, and it's underneath this front passenger side. So we'll go ahead up under here, remove the oil filter. We can take it over onto the bench, cut it up, and we can see if there's any big chunks of metal or anything worrying inside of the oil filter. All right, guys, we just pulled the oil filter out, and if you take a look at this, it is absolutely packed with metal and debris. So that is absolutely terrible sign. I would say there's about a 99% chance we have a spun bearing inside the motor. So that is gonna be quite the headache to deal with. Wow. As you guys can see, I don't even need to cut this thing up. You can just see how much debris is just sitting right on the outside of this thing. I think that means it did just happen. So I believe the bearing probably just spun from this old oil going through the motor. That is super unfortunate, but not something we can't fix. So let's go ahead and keep digging into the M5. We're definitely gonna have to be taking apart everything from underneath. We're gonna have to remove the subframe to get the oil pan out and inspect everything. For now, I guess I'll wait till the bore scope gets here. We can start inspecting everything, and then we'll probably prep to drop the oil pan out from underneath. All right, guys, so we have kind of come up with a plan of attack after looking at the oil filter and all of the debris in there. Really got me thinking that this thing probably has a spun bearing. But after rewatching the videos of when this engine started having issues, there's no real sign of this thing having spun a bearing. It wasn't making any specific tapping noises or anything like really specific. It was just running really bad. So I'm not sure exactly if it did spin a bearing or not. I'm still hopeful that it didn't, but if it did, that means this motor is toast, and we're gonna have to probably get another used motor. So I don't want to replace anything on this engine before I know if the bottom end is good. So the plan of attack right now is to move forward as if we were going to be replacing the rod bearings without buying any parts. I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble the top of the engine so I can put a support brace in here and support it from the top. We'll be disconnecting everything from the subframe, dropping the subframe. We're gonna drop the oil pan, and that will get us access to the actual rod bearings themselves. We're gonna spin the motor over, and one by one, we'll take off the caps off the bottom of the rods, and we can look at them one by one. I'm not gonna order rod bearings or anything yet. I'm just gonna take them off, inspect them, and put them back on. Once I've inspected all 20 rod bearings, then we'll know whether or not we're gonna need to replace this engine because one of them is spun, or if I can order replacement rod bearings and do all the other maintenance. If there's not a spun bearing, I do think the issue is the high pressure Vanos line that goes from the Vanos pump, the bottom of the engine, up to the top and feeds the Vanos solenoids in the head. I think that is the issue, because not having pressured all 4 solenoids, it makes the most sense that they're just not able to get the pressure because that line burst. That is a problem that is pretty common on these because they run such high pressure in the Vanos system. So I'm really hopeful that's still the issue. And if it is, and there isn't a spun rod bearing, that means all of that debris is from a rod bearing that was super close to spinning, and it would be a really good time to change them anyway. So we're gonna continue on, get everything disassembled, get the engine supported, and we'll start taking everything apart so we can take a look inside the heart of this V10 engine. All right, guys, I got a little bit sidetracked and just decided to take out the entire radiator. The reason is it was completely full of debris in between whatever this is. I think it's the AC condenser and the radiator. There was just so much debris down there. So I decided just to take the radiator all the way out, go ahead and vacuum all of this crap out of here. guys, we have spent the last few days doing so much work to the M5, and it is officially time to find out if this engine is good. We just have a few bolts left before we're gonna know if this thing spun a bearing and is completely done, or if we're gonna be able to salvage this cheap M5. Let's go ahead and take a look at all the work that we've done so far. We currently have the engine brace up top holding the engine because we've completely removed the entire subframe and the oil pan. So you guys can see the oil pan is just sitting down here on this jack, and we have exposed the inside of the motor. We're gonna go ahead inside and see if we can find a spun bearing. Over here, you guys can see all of the stuff we had to take apart to get to this point in the motor. We have all the under trays, the fan, the entire subframe with the steering rack, the whole intake system and everything like that, all the different plastics, the coolant hoses, to get to this point now where we can check and see if this engine is good. I'm crossing my fingers, it hasn't spun a bearing, and we can leave the motor in the car. If this thing has spun a bearing, then we are gonna have to put the oil pan back on so that we can get the engine hoist in here and take the engine out from the M5. So we're gonna find out today in today's video if we are going to have to take out this motor or if it's gonna stay inside of the M5. All right, guys, I wanna talk about what a spun rod bearing means. Some of you guys might not know what that means. So I have a piston right here. This is actually from an S55 V8 M3. So it is the exact same piston, rod bearing, and rod bolt design that is inside of the M5 V10. They share the exact same architecture with just 2 extra cylinders on the V10 versus the V8. So looking at this one, you can see here, this is the piston up top with the rod. This rod actually is connected with these 2 rod bolts, and it sits around the crankshaft. The crankshaft sits right in here, and the crankshaft spins. And when you have metal on metal, you need a bearing. So this right here is actually what's called a rod bearing. And this sits in between the crankshaft and the rod itself in order to keep everything smooth and able to spin around. So from factory, there's a problem with the V8 and V10, M3, M5, M6 of this generation, where these rod bearings were spec'd too tight to the crankshaft. They don't allow enough oiling inside of here. There's actually oil that comes out of the crankshaft and keeps this whole thing lubricated through small holes. So there needs to be just a little bit of clearance between the rod bearing and the crankshaft, but not too much, so it's loose and moves around. Just enough so oil can get in there and lubricate. From factory, they're too tight and they actually wear away at these rod bearings. What happens is when this completely wears away is it becomes weak. It will actually spin this rod bearing into the other side, and sometimes it can melt or they both will spin. And when that happens, if this comes out of where it's supposed to be in the bottom of the rod, it will destroy the crankshaft and the rod at minimum pretty much. And sometimes the entire motor is actually just completely done. So if we have one of these rod bearings that we pull out and it is not intact and it has spun into the top half of the piston or into the crankshaft, then the motor is toast and we need a new motor. So we're going to be going underneath and pulling all of these rod caps off and checking to see the condition of the rod bearings before we do anything else to this motor. And let's go ahead under the car and inspect these factory rod bearings. All right, guys, we have spent the last 2 days completely tearing down the M5 V10 so we can check out and see if it has a spun rod bearing. We have the engine hanging right here and the entire subframe dropped out so we could drop the oil pan. We did that last night and I let it sit overnight so that it could drip all the remaining oil out. We're now ready to get inside the motor and start disassembling so we can see if this thing spun a bearing. All right, guys, we just got the first set of rod bearings out and I am completely in shock right now. They look brand new. Let me show them to you guys. So right here we have cylinder 10 and cylinder 9 rod bearing caps pulled out. And if you guys look, these are actually brand new. The reason I know that is because if you take a look at this brand new rod bearing right here, you can see this gray coating on top. That has just started to wear away in this one and is almost completely gone in this one. That is the first break-in coating. So that means that these bearings have done maybe a few 1,000 miles, if that. Really strange because there is so much debris. You guys see right here, so much copper flakes. So my worry is that it did spin a bearing. Somebody threw these in there to try and get rid of the car, and it does have some scoring, and it either spun a bearing or something else is wrong. But we're gonna keep going. I wanna leave these in the engine because if they are all good, that'd be great to know that I have a new set of rod bearings that I didn't have to pay for. The problem is that these bolts are one-time use and they actually stretch out. You guys can see they have this center section right here that stretches as you tighten them down. So I'm going to be putting these in temporarily, going through the remaining 8 rods and looking at the rod bearings. If they're all good, I will have to come back with new bolts and swap them out one by one and torque them down. So for now, I'm just going to throw these in temporarily so they're tight so I can spin the crankshaft again to get the next set of cylinders. But for now, this is a really good sign that this has new rod bearings in it. It's kind of confusing though because of how much debris we have in there. So I guess we're going to keep going and we'll find out. Guys, we were working our way from the front to the back on pulling out the rod bearings, and we just got to cylinders 3 and 4, and I found the issue with this engine, and it is not a spun bearing. Let me go ahead and show you guys what it is. If you guys take a look right here, this is cylinder number 3 and cylinder number 4, and this bearing in here is absolutely as close as you can get to spinning a bearing without actually spinning it. You can see that it was getting stuck on the crankshaft, but somehow it didn't spin. It was wearing away at this copper, and it sent so much of this copper material through the engine that it actually clogged up the Vano solenoids, and that is what we were seeing in the oil filter. I was afraid that it had gotten so bad that it actually spun this bearing, but luckily there's no damage to the crankshaft. The crankshaft is perfectly smooth. There's no gouges or anything in it, so we got so lucky. I believe if I ran this engine for about one more day, this bearing would have absolutely been wrecked. You guys can see it doesn't even fit in the rod cap anymore because it's been wearing on the crankshaft so bad. I'm guessing that this engine did get a rod bearing service done recently, but whoever put in rod bearing number 4 didn't do the proper procedure to check the clearance on the bearing, and this is the issue I was telling you guys that these have from factory. Crankshaft was wearing away at this bearing prematurely. Number 3, you can see right here, still has that coating that's just barely started to wear away and was perfectly fine, and this one was completely getting eaten up by the crankshaft. So this material is meant to be softer than the crankshaft, so it won't damage anything until it breaks through this shell, or if the shell spins and clogs up into the rod and the crankshaft. So we just got so lucky. This, I believe, seriously, if this engine drove anymore, this bearing would have absolutely destroyed everything. So that actually makes sense why the Vanos solenoids are all clogged in the top of the head and why there's so much copper down in the oil pan and in the oil filter, is because that bearing was just about to give way and has been eating itself since I picked up the car. So we got so lucky, but it seems like the crankshaft is going to be okay. My plan now is to get a new set of rod bearings and rod bolts. We're going to leave cylinders 3 and 4 off so I don't have to keep spinning it around with that bad bearing in there, and we're actually just going to immediately swap those out. I'll make sure to do the proper test to make sure the clearance is correct for the oil in between the crankshaft and the bearing so we don't have that issue again. But man, that was actually so close to being a catastrophic failure. I can't believe it clogged up the head and shut down the engine before it actually spun and blew up. We just got so lucky. If it didn't clog up those Vano solenoids and I kept driving, it absolutely would have destroyed the motor. So I can't believe that, but that gamble that we made on this used M5 V10 might be paying off. So we're going to get a set of rod bearings and rod bolts, and we'll get them shipped here. It's going to be a couple days. In the meantime, we're going to be taking off the Vanos pump and the oil pump from underneath, as well as the Vanos high pressure line. Those are all things I want to inspect, and I'm going to be replacing the Vanos line as preventative maintenance. Also be pulling out all the Vanos solenoids. We're going to be cleaning everything out. We're going to have to do multiple oil changes on this engine to get all of that copper material out, but luckily this engine is going to be salvageable. I'm so excited for this. I cannot wait to hear this V10 scream. Let's go ahead and get cleaned up while we wait for our new parts. All right, guys, we just got all of the parts ordered for the V10 that is going to get this thing back on the road. We ordered new rod bearings, new bolts, and a bunch of other maintenance items that are good to do while we have the oil pan off. It's going to be about a week before we get all the new parts. So that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Let me know what you think of the V10 M5 down below, and make sure you guys comment what mods you want to see us do on the channel. I have a ton of stuff in mind, but I'd love to get your guys' feedback. What we should do to this thing. Should we wrap it, lower it, exhaust. What exhaust should I do? Let me know down below if you guys have any suggestions, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.